Someone had invaded his territory. Frowning, Luke Turner stopped halfway down the 40 wooden steps that led to what was supposed to be a private beach on the shores of Lake Michigan. The brim of a large floppy hat peaked above the wide swath of tall grass between the base of the steps and the open sand, and it was low to the ground, meaning the woman who owned it was sitting, not just pausing to admire the view while strolling by. A definite breach of etiquette in this part of the world. Stifling a sigh, he resettled the frame of his chair on his shoulder, took a sip of coffee from his mug, and resumed his descent. Starting his visit to Pier Cove with a confrontation held zero appeal, especially after all the conflict he'd seen during his 10 years as an Army doctor. All he wanted to do on this trip was reacclimate to civilian life, complete one final mission before heading home to Atlanta and the ER job that awaited him, and chill. And he'd planned to do much of that chilling on his private beach. At the bottom of the steps, he stopped again to take another sip of coffee. If the information Mark had provided when he'd offered his house as a getaway was correct, the woman was clearly trespassing. According to his friend, the house next door that shared this beach had been unoccupied since the owner died last fall. Luke was well within his rights to tell the trespasser to move on. And maybe this would be easy. It was possible she was a vacationer who didn't know that most Michigan beaches were private. If so, he could direct her to the public beach a short stroll away. Then he could enjoy this sunny Saturday morning in peaceful isolation. Plan in hand, he followed the narrow path through the swaying grass and stepped onto the sand. The interloper was angled slightly away from him, seated in a beach chair, her long legs stretched in front of her, a pair of flip-flops askew in the sand, as if she'd kicked them off. She was wrapped in a gaudy beach towel to ward off the morning chill Mark had warned him was common on the lake shore even in mid-July, and her eyes were hidden behind sunglasses. Shoulder-length blonde hair peeked beneath the brim of her hat, and her head was bent as she perused a book. Beside her, a thermos was stuck into the top of an overflowing beach bag, and she was juggling a mug of coffee in one hand. In other words, she was settled in for the duration.